There are nights when silence is heavier than thunder. Mine began like any other. I had taken my evening pills, brushed my hair, and slipped into bed with my Bible on the nightstand. The desert air outside my condo windows was still and warm, the kind of night where even the cicadas seemed tired of singing. At 75, I thought I knew what fear felt like. I had survived losing my husband, burying siblings, and standing over the graves of friends. But nothing prepared me for the sound of my daughter's voice drifting through the walls. It was nearly midnight when I heard her. Jessica thought I was asleep, but age sharpens certain senses even as it dulls others. Her voice was low, careful, and yet every word carried to my room. At first I thought she was on a harmless call, perhaps speaking with a friend, maybe even a new job lead. But the words I caught froze me where I lay. Yes, the papers are ready. Once she's gone, no one will question it. The insurance will clear within a month. The condo's already worth close to $800. I held my breath. My own daughter was not talking about an old relative, not about a client. She was talking about me. She paused, listening to the man on the other end. Her tone softened into a laugh that chilled me more than her words. Don't worry, the box is ready. No one looks for an old woman when they think she's confused. It'll be quick, quiet. By the time anyone asks questions, the money will be safe. The box. I knew she meant a coffin, though she didn't say the word. I pressed, my hand over my mouth to stop a sound escaping. My body trembled, but my mind was sharp. 75 years teaches you the value of stillness. I turned my head slightly on the pillow, straining to catch every syllable. Her voice dropped further. She trusts me again. Calls me her miracle. Can you imagine? After all these years, she thinks I came back to care for her. That makes it easier. The laugh that followed was softer than a whisper, but it carried more cruelty than any scream. I lay in the dark, my heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted out. I thought of Walter, my husband, gone 10 years now. I thought of the store we built together, the life we carved from nothing. And I thought of Jessica, the baby I rocked in my arms, the little girl who used to cry when she scraped her knees. Now that same child was plotting where and how I would die. Fear should have swallowed me, but something else rose instead. A strange calm, like the hush before a storm. I realized I couldn't let her know I'd heard. I had to stay quiet, play the part of the frail old woman who trusted too easily. If she suspected I knew, she might strike sooner, harsher. That night, in the darkness of my own home, I made a silent vow. If my daughter wanted to erase me, she would discover she had chosen the wrong woman. She might see me as weak, but I carried a strength she had never understood. The strength to endure, the strength to plan, and when the time came, the strength to fight back. I closed my eyes and slowed my breathing, pretending to drift into sleep. Jessica's voice faded as she ended the call, her footsteps padding softly down the hallway. But I did not sleep. I lay awake, staring into the shadows, knowing my life had changed forever. Because once you hear your own child plan your death, there is no going back. Before I tell you how I fought back, you should know who I am. People hear 75 and build a picture that doesn't fit my skin. I am not fragile china on a shelf. I am a workbench. Scratched, solid, useful. I was born in a small Louisiana town where summer stuck to your neck and neighbors knew your middle name. My mama taught, Me to make gumbo that could calm a storm. My daddy fixed anything with a hinge. He used to say, "Tools don't lie, Ellie. You either turn the screw or you don't." I learned patience watching him. The small things matter. A loose pin, a bent nail, the tiny click that tells you a lock is ready to open. At 25, I followed a job posting west and landed in Phoenix with a secondhand suitcase and a prayer. The hardware store smelled like sawdust and oil, home in a bottle. That's where I met Walter. He wasn't a poet. He was better. He showed up. He remembered birthdays. He wiped his boots before stepping on the new linoleum. We started as clerks, learned the books, and one day the owner said, "You two care more than I do. Buy it from me." We did, one long year at a time. We built a simple life. Coffee at dawn, ledger by the register, free twine for anyone who needed it. Walter could open a rusted padlock with a whisper. He said every stuck thing wants to move. You just have to listen for the part that's ready. When he died of a heart attack 10 years back, I told myself there are doors even he can't open. I kept the store with Frank, our manager, until it made sense to hand him the keys. I kept the condo, paid every bill on time, walked the same park path in my straw hat at sunrise. Peace looks like that. Small, repeated. We had one child, Jessica. She was a storm in silk, pretty, sharp, always reaching past our front gate. While we were happy with a sturdy house and a well-stocked pantry, she dreamed of glass towers and imported cars. She cut pictures from magazines and said, "That'll be me." There were good days. I held her after nightmares. We laughed over ruined cupcakes. But she wanted more than we could give. Money turned into arguments. The last one was the worst. Words you wish you could unsay grow teeth. If you wonder why I let her back in, here is the plain answer. I am a mother. Love does not erase memory. It keeps the door on its hinges. You can close it. You can open it. You decide. When she showed up thinner, softer, calling me mom like it was a new word in her mouth, I chose to open it. That choice sits heavy now, but I won't pretend it was foolish. Mercy is not foolish. It's a kind of courage. I am not senile. I balance a checkbook in my head. I still remember the SKU for a 3-inch brass hinge. I can tell oak from pine with my fingers, eyes closed. My body is slower, yes. My hands are calloused, yes. But my mind is a tidy drawer. Everything has a place. I keep friends who don't fuss. Margaret with her loud laugh. Joyce who prays over everything. Barbara who leaves pie on your doorstep like a secret. Wednesdays were bingo and gossip. Sundays were church and a nap. That was my rhythm. It fit me. So when I heard my daughter whisper into a phone about papers and a box and money that belonged to a future without me, the world did not fall apart. It narrowed. It turned into parts I could hold. Air, pulse, footsteps, words. This is who I am. A woman built by small, faithful acts. A woman who knows that the tiniest click can be the sound of a life opening. The night I heard that call, I did. Not become someone new. I became the most honest version of myself, still, watchful, ready to do the next right thing. The doorbell rang on a Sunday, the kind of slow morning when coffee tastes like a memory. I opened the door with my hand still warm from the mug. There she was. Jessica. 15 years older and wearing perfume that arrived a second before she did. "Hi, Mom," she said, as if last week were the last time. She looked like the magazines she used to cut. Sleek hair, careful makeup, a coat that whispered money. But her eyes were swollen at the edges, and her voice had a crack down the middle. She held herself like someone trying to stand on two kinds of ground at once. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. The old reflex beat the old wounds. I set an extra cup on the counter and filled it. She took it with both hands like prayer. "I messed up," she said. "Marriage, money, all of it. I thought I wanted a bigger life. Turns out I just wanted a softer place to land. I'm sorry." There are apologies that clang and apologies that bend the room. This one bent it. I nodded, not ready to touch the past, but not willing to shut the door on the present. We sat. She told a neat story. Rich husband, richer lies, a clean break, a smaller bank account. "I've been thinking about what matters," she said, eyes shining. "You matter." The first week felt like someone had set the clock back. She woke before me, made eggs just the way Walter liked them. She asked for my gumbo recipe and didn't roll her eyes at my notes. She wiped the counters down to the corners. She laughed in a way that reached into the old part of my chest and pressed a warm cloth there. Then small things started to shift. "Mom, where do you keep the deed?" she asked one afternoon, casual as weather. "I want to help you make an emergency binder. You know, in case anything happens. It's what good daughters do." I wanted to be the kind of mother who had a binder like that. I showed her the file box in the hall closet. Deed, insurance policy, bank statements, the envelope with Walter's name on it that I still can't throw away. She opened a little notebook, blue cover, thin lines, and wrote neat lists. Beneficiaries, account numbers, renewal dates. Her handwriting looked like someone building a bridge, each letter, a careful plank. She smiled when she wrote, not at me, but at the page. She began to fix my life. New curtains, new pill organizer with time of day labels, a fresh calendar on the fridge with appointments in fine ink. "We'll see a better cardiologist, Mom. Second opinions are smart." She said it like a gift, not a takeover. I wanted to take it as a gift. "Do you still talk to Margaret and the others?" she asked while folding towels that didn't need folding. "You should rest more. I'll tell them you're slowing down a bit." She kissed my forehead. It felt like a stamp. At the market, she steered the cart. Low sodium this, extra strength that. At home, she moved my teacups from the left cabinet to the right. She relabeled spice jars and kept the key to the mailbox, so you don't have to walk down there. None of it was big enough to argue with. Taken together, it was a drift. My house began to sound different. More lids closing, more locks turning. One evening, she put her phone face down on the table and reached for my hand. "I want to make things right," she said. "Let me take care of you. Let me be your person." I felt the pull of that sentence. Everyone wants a person. I squeezed back. "Then be here," I said. "Not just in the fixes, in the quiet." She smiled and stood to clear the plates. As she passed, I saw the blue notebook tucked into her back pocket, its corner bent like a dog ear. Later, when she showered, I found it on the counter under a dish towel. I didn't open it. I only touched the cover, the way you might touch a door to see if it's warm. That night, she asked for the spare key. "For emergencies," she said. I gave it to her, because I wanted to believe emergency meant help and not hurry. I went to bed listening to the apartment breathe around me, A new rhythm laid over the old one. In the dark, I told myself to be grateful. A daughter had come home. A life could be mended. Still, as sleep crept in, a single thought stayed awake. I know the sound a drawer makes when it's almost closed. This one wasn't. It started with, "Helpful hands." "Let me take this off your plate," Jessica said, sliding the pill organizer toward her side of the table. "Mornings up here, evenings down there. I'll refill it every Sunday so you don't have to think." The pills changed color. My little white blood pressure tablets became blue ovals. The joint pain tablets I took only on bad days became a daily pair with breakfast. "New prescriptions," she said. "The specialist I found is more current than your old doctor." "I feel sleepy on these," I told her after 3 days. "Like the room is 3 steps farther away." "That's because your body is finally relaxing," she answered, smiling too wide. "You've been tense for years." She wrote it, all in the blue notebook. Dosages, times, how I responded. Every entry was neat. Every sentence sounded like a plan. The house shifted under her touch. She put a basket by the door labeled keys and took both sets to streamline. The mailbox key lived in her pocket now, so you don't have to go downstairs in the heat. My calendar on the fridge became hers. Appointments I hadn't made, notes I didn't write. Cardio 10 a.m. Memory screen, routine. Insurance review, just paperwork. When the phone rang, she reached it first. "Mom's resting," she told Margaret. "She's been having little lapses, nothing scary. Typical." To Joyce. "She gets confused if the day gets too busy. Let's give her quiet." To Barbara. "Doctor says visitors tire her out. I'll bring her pie, thanks." The calls thinned, then stopped. My Wednesdays grew empty in the exact shape of bingo and laughter. Inside the house, small things betrayed me. My glasses, always on the nightstand, began appearing on the kitchen counter. My checkbook moved from the desk drawer to the linen closet. I found the sugar in the spice rack and salt where the tea bags lived. When I mentioned it, Jessica cocked her head. "Mom, you're the one moving things," she said softly, like breaking bad news. "You told me you were reorganizing." "I never said that," I answered. She put her hand over mine. "It's okay to forget. That's why I'm here." She loved labels. She labeled the pantry. She labeled the remote. She labeled a new binder. Important. Inside, my life lay in plastic sleeves, deed, insurance policy, bank statements, and a printed list of accounts to consolidate. She added a tab that read "Legal" with blank forms tucked behind it. "That's for later," she said. "When you feel up to making everything easy for both of us." Easy is a soft word. It hides its teeth. She nudged my routines out of the day like chairs from a table. My morning walk can wait until the weather cools. Church became, "We'll stream it." She set bedtime earlier and woke me before dawn to keep your rhythm steady. If I stood to wash a dish, she plucked it away. "Sit, Mom, I've got it." One afternoon, the doorman looked at me with a concern that stung. "Miss Eleanor," he said, slow and careful. "If you ever feel lost, you press 0 on the lobby phone, okay? Your daughter said your memory's been giving you trouble." My mouth opened and closed on nothing. Jessica had been busy in places I couldn't see. At dinner, I set 3 forks by habit, then laughed at myself and put one away. When I sat, there were 3 forks again. "Mom," she said gently, "we already fixed it." "I fixed it," I said. She tilted her head, kind as a teacher. "I think you forgot." That's all right. A small crack opened inside me. Not a break, not yet. A hairline line where trust had sat for 50 years. At night, I listened to the apartment's new music. Timers, lids, the soft clap of the blue notebook closing. In the mirror, I practiced stillness. If I told her I felt foggy, she would nod and write it down. If I told her I felt fine, she would smile and call it denial. I began to test myself the way Walter used to test a repaired lock. Count backward by sevens while I folded towels. Recite Psalm 23 while I brewed tea. Balance the checkbook in my head and then on paper and then against the bank's printout. Every time the numbers met in the middle like hands. I wasn't slipping. My life was being moved around me. Freedom shrinks quietly, not with slammed doors, but with soft closures. Not with chains, but with helping hands that never let go. One evening, she placed a form in front of me and a pen beside it. Nothing urgent, she said, bright as morning. Just a simple power of attorney. In case of emergencies, I read the title and slid it back. Not tonight. Her smile never faltered. Of course, when you're rested. She cleared the plates, humming. The binder waited on the table, open to a blank line where my name should go. I stood there a long time, feeling the room narrow to that empty space. I am not fragile china. I am a workbench, scratched, solid, useful. And tonight, I felt the grain of my own wood and promised myself I would not be sanded down to smooth. The first time I saw it, I thought it was light-catching steam. Afternoon sun slid across the counter, the kettle hissed, and Jessica set 2 cups on saucers like a hostess on television. "Chamomile," she said. "You've been tense." She stirred my cup a little longer than hers. When she lifted the spoon, a pale dust rode the swirl and settled at the bottom like fine silt in a jar. I lifted the cup, let the heat kiss my lip, and did not drink. "It smells different," I said. "Imported," she smiled. "The good kind." She watched me. I learned long ago that a person's eyes tell the story their mouth won't. Hers were too busy, moving from my face to the cup, back to my face. I tilted the cup, letting tea touch my tongue. Bitter, not floral. The kind of bitter that wears perfume to hide its shape. "Hot," I said, setting it down. "Give it a minute." We talked about nothing. The neighbor's new dog, a coupon, the weather pretending to be kind. When she stood to check the oven, I palmed a napkin, dipped the spoon, and let one wet scoop fall into the folds. The rest I carried with me when I rose to water the fern. I poured a thin ribbon into the soil, careful not to soak it. Plants talk slow, but they do tell the truth. Back at the table, I raised the cup, tilted it like a toast, and let the liquid touch my lip again. Then I lowered it, smiling as if drowsiness were already coming. "Lovely," I said. That evening I felt odd tired. Not the tired that comes from sweeping a floor, but the kind that sits behind your eyes and presses. I drank water. I counted my pulse. Steady enough. When I brushed my teeth, I caught a glint of powder ringed at the cup's bottom in a thin, pale moon. The fern answered by morning. Leaves that had lifted toward the kitchen light now drooped like wet flags. The tips browned in arrows. I touched the soil. It was still damp from my watering. The message was plain as a label. "Mom?" Jessica. Called light as sugar. "Tea?" "I'll do coffee today," I said, too quick. Felt groggy. She came to the doorway, searched my face like a map. Groggy can mean dehydration. Her hand landed on my shoulder. Tea helps. I made a show of fussing with the coffee tin until she moved away. Then I sat and listened to the apartment speak. Cupboard, kettle, spoon, the soft clack of her notebook. When she delivered the cup, I met it like an old friend, cradled it, and did not drink. The routine became a game I didn't want to play but couldn't afford to lose. She brewed. I praised. I sipped while we talked about the new curtains, the specialist, the insurance review, just to make sure your beneficiaries are updated. Each afternoon, I carried my cup to the window and fed the same plant a sip of my survival. On the third day, it yellowed. On the fourth, it crisped at the edges as if touched by winter. By the fifth, the fern lay flat, a small green body in a clay cradle. I replaced it with an empty pot. "Where's your fern?" Jessica asked, casual. "Root rot," I said. "I overwatered." She smiled without showing teeth. "Plants are tricky. So are daughters." My body began to understand the rhythm. 20 minutes after a true sip, my tongue went numb at the edges. 30 minutes brought a woolly kind of thinking, thoughts walking through tall grass. On days when I poured all of it away, the fog never came. I kept notes in my head, then on the back of a recipe card tucked inside a cookbook, sip, R tingling. Swallow fog, dump ear clear. I was testing myself the way Walter tested a fix. Tap, listen, test again. Once I pretended to nap and heard her in the kitchen, rinsing my cup longer than rinsing needs. Later, I found the cup spotless, but a stray grain clung to the saucer, bright against the china. I took a picture with my mind, then wiped it away, with my thumb, and washed my thumb twice. Fear got heavier, but it grew edges I could hold. Dread is different from panic. Panic wants to run. Dread wants to plan. That night, I pushed the dresser half an inch against the bedroom door and slid, a pair of sewing scissors under my pillow. Not because I thought I could fight her. I am old, not foolish, but because the weight in my palm reminded my hands they still belonged to me. At dinner, she poured water into my glass and set the pen beside a new page in the binder. "When you're ready," she said, tapping the spot where my name should go. "I'll read it tomorrow," I said. "Tomorrow, then," she answered, voice warm as the kettle. When she slept, I stood in the dark kitchen and looked at the empty pot, where the fern had been. A clean circle of dry soil, silent proof. I placed my palm flat on the counter, felt the cool, and told myself the truth out loud for the first time. She is trying to make me small enough to fit in a box. The room did not disagree. Rumors travel faster than truth, especially when truth limps. By the end of the week, the building had a gentler voice for me. The doorman spoke in slow, careful sentences, as if my ears were made of glass. The neighbor with the yappy terrier patted my arm and asked if I knew what day it was. The mail carrier offered to bring my letters straight to Jessica, just to be safe. Safe is another soft word with teeth. Margaret called and I reached for the phone, but Jessica lifted it first. "She's napping," she said. Then, after a beat, with a stage whisper I was meant to hear, "She's had little forgetful spells. Doctor says it's the beginning of something." The call ended with a promise to update. Update means goodbye you don't say out loud. Joyce left a voicemail prayer. Barbara texted a pie emoji and the words "thinking of you." No one asked me how I was. They asked Jessica. The elevator conversations changed. Bless her heart. Such a devoted daughter. Early stages, poor thing. I learned how pity sounds through a keyhole. When I stepped into the hallway, faces brightened with performance. When I passed, they dimmed, like the light over a stoop that needs a new bulb. I tried to catch myself slipping and found nothing to catch. I wrote dates on a sticky note by the kettle and checked them against the calendar. Still right. I hid a hairpin under the sugar bowl and checked at noon. Still there. I left my glasses on the nightstand and returned to find them on the kitchen counter. Moved. I started keeping a quiet ledger in a cheap spiral notebook I tucked behind. The cleaning rags. Glasses moved. Mail missing. Pill color changed. Visitor discouraged. The list grew like a shadow. Loneliness filled the rooms without making a sound. Loneliness is not just silence. It is when your truth has no ears to land on. I set it to the window and watched my breath fog, a small cloud that proved I was still here. Jessica sharpened the story every day. I heard her at the front desk, her voice a velvet knife. If she wanders, call me first. At the clinic, she answered for me. She gets dates confused. She told the nurse while I sat within arm's reach. The nurse turned her questions to Jessica's face, not mine, and clicked checkboxes that did not belong to me. I learned a new skill, acting like I believed her. I let my brow wrinkle. I repeated myself once on purpose. I asked where the keys were right after I saw her slip them into her coat. If she needed a story, I decided I would hand her the neatest version, folded and pressed. The more convinced she felt, the sloppier she would get. Sloppy people leave trails. Planning became a quiet practice, like prayer done under your breath. I mapped the building in my head. Camera angles, blind spots, the service stairs that smell like old mop water, the dent in the fourth-floor railing you can hook a finger through as you pass. I timed routines, the doorman's 10 p.m. bathroom break, the night cleaner's route, the way the lobby lights flicker at 1:13 a.m. I tested the basement door and felt the give of a cheap latch. I remembered an old janitor's closet tucked behind the water heaters, the one Walter and I discovered when a pipe burst, the one nobody uses because it isn't on any plan. It hummed in my memory like a low note. I took inventory of what still belonged to me. The clothes on my back, 2 sewing needles, the knowledge of how screws strip if you turn them wrong, how pine splinters in long, forgiving slivers, how a lie always asks for more room. Knowledge is a kind of key. I practice stillness the way a doctor practices sutures, steady hands, slow breath. At bedtime, I placed 3 coins under my pillow and counted them with my fingertips in the dark, so I'd know if anyone else's hands had been in my room. In the morning, I checked the coins, then checked the locks, then checked my reflection to see if I still recognized the woman looking back. I did. She looked like someone who could hold a line. I began to watch Jessica the way I used to watch. A stubborn lock, listening for the click that tells you the tumblers are about to fall. When she texted in the kitchen with her phone tilted away, I memorized the rhythm of her thumbs. When she took a call on the balcony, I cracked the window and learned the names she said too softly. Martin claim declaration 30 days. When she left, I sniffed cups, checked trash, and found a pharmacy receipt folded to hide the drug name. I smoothed it flat and read it twice. Then a small mercy arrived disguised as carelessness. She went out to get bread, leaving her laptop open on the dining table, the blue notebook beside it, the cursor blinking like a metronome. I stood in the doorway, heartbeat loud enough to be a clock. This was the war I hadn't wanted, and there was my first open field. I wiped my hands on A dish towel walked to the chair and sat. The cursor blinked like a tiny lighthouse on the edge of a dark sea. Jessica had left for bread, her purse on her arm, her perfume in the hallway, and her laptop open on the dining table. The blue notebook sat beside it, a pen tucked neatly in the spiral. I stood a long moment, palms on the chair back, listening for the elevator. Nothing but building hush. I sat. The screen was a browser window. Across the top, small gray tabs like teeth. Policy beneficiaries. Living trust template. How long to declare someone dead without a body? Best sedatives for elderly sleep. Time. For bodies to decompose in different soils. How to fake natural death in the elderly. My breath forgot what to do. Then it remembered. Slow in. Slow out. I did not click wild. I clicked careful, the way Walter taught me to turn a stubborn screw. Feel for the thread and let the tool find the line. The history dropped down like a trapdoor, links stacked by hour and day. Death certificate without remains. Missing senior. Search timelines. Selling property after presumed death. Who can sign for incapacitated parent? Power of attorney. Arizona sample. There were also names. Martin V. Draft in her email. A starred thread labeled claim packet. A calendar event. Review docs. 2 p.m. with a small briefcase icon. My name appeared in subject lines where I had never put it. E. Hayes. Beneficiary update. E. Hayes. Cognitive note. Cognitive note. I opened one. It was a summary of my supposed condition. Increasing confusion, misplacing items, repeating questions. It read like a diary I hadn't written. At the bottom, a line I knew she would recite to anyone who asked. Primary concern, safety and supervision. Safety is a soft word. We had covered that. I kept my hand steady. I clicked the downloads folder. Blank forms watched me. Durable power of attorney.pdf. Transfer on death deed.pdf. Life insurance. Change of beneficiary.pdf. They were empty, waiting for ink. My ink on the queue. Desktop lay a list named supplies. I opened it with hands that did not shake. Pine boards 108. Nails 3-4 in. Rope. Shovel. Tarp. The breath left me and took the room with it. Pine. I could feel the grain under my fingers just seeing the word. I closed my eyes and said the sentence that would keep me alive. Do not confront. Outthink. When I opened them, I went to the trash bin icon. Inside, a freshly deleted image. Condo estimate.apg. A realtor's valuation circled in red. Another file titled Claim Timeline.docs laid out 30 days like stepping stones across a river she thought I would never cross. She was building a future without me in neat bullet points. I did not cry. Tears blurred details. I needed details. Took a tiny square of paper from the blue notebook, just the corner, so the missing piece looked like a dog ear, and wrote 3 words with the stub of a pencil from the junk drawer. Claim, 30 days. I folded it and slid it into my bra the way women have hidden important things forever. Footsteps in the hallway. I closed what I had opened, set the cursor back where it had been, pushed the chair in the exact divot it had made in the rug. Then I stood at the sink with a dish towel in my hands as if I'd been scrubbing a clean plate for a thoughtful length of time. The door opened. No bread, Jessica called, too bright. Line was ridiculous. I said, turning. Towel draped over my shoulder like always. She glanced at the laptop and then at me. I learned a long time ago that locks speak. So do eyes. Hers asked a question. Mine answered with plain wood. Old. Smooth. Unreadable. That night, I lay on my back and sorted what I knew. She had a partner. She had a schedule. She had a story for the world, and she had set it walking. She also had a weakness. Pride makes people careless. People who feel sure stop checking the doors. I would make myself small. I would nod and forget, and need help on cue. I would find places in this building where cameras did not look. I would gather proof that could not be talked away. And when the clock she had set for my death struck the hour, I would be standing in the doorway. I slid 3 coins under my pillow and counted them with my fingertips. Still 3. In the quiet, the sentence I had chosen came back to me like a tool in my palm. Do not confront, outthink, morning would come, and with it, my first move. The day felt ordinary on purpose. Jessica made eggs. She set my pills by the napkin. She asked about the park like she hadn't canceled my walk all week. When she poured afternoon tea, I watched the spoon turn the cup the way a key turns a lock. I let the steam touch my face. I did not drink. Big day tomorrow, she said, too light. Paperwork with Martin, just to make things smooth. Smooth, I echoed, folding my hands so she wouldn't see them shake. That evening, she spoke on the balcony with her back to the glass. The night held her voice and gave me the pieces. Boards are in the trunk. Yes, the 118 pine. Nails, rope, tarp. We'll take the service road. No cameras near the old Preston Ranch. Insurance clears in 30 once the declaration is filed. She's already confused on record. Her laugh was soft and wrong. It'll be clean. I stood in the dark kitchen, the refrigerator. A small engine under my ribs. Pine, she'd said. I could feel that wood with my fingertips without touching it. Soft, knotty, easy to split if you know where to pry. She came back inside, smiling like a hostess. You look tired, Mom. I am, I said, and made my face look older than my bones. At 9, she brought me a special cup. Sleep blend, she said. Chamomile, lemon balm. The surface showed a dusting of pale moon at the bottom. I lifted it. I talked. I laughed. I set it down. When she fluffed a pillow, I poured a ribbon into the empty pot by the window, and another into the sink, letting the faucet run so the sound hid the truth. Then I yawned like a storybook grandmother. Oh, that does make me drowsy. She helped me to bed, smoothed my blanket, and kissed my forehead as if kindness could erase intent. I slowed my breathing and watched the ceiling find its shadow. Time stretched thin. The door eased open on a whisper. Footsteps crossed the room. Her perfume arrived first. She's out, Jessica said, voice barely air. Pulse is slow. We have half an hour. Bring the box. A man answered from the hall, the brief voice I'd only heard through doors. Trucks. Waiting. You sure? I gave her enough to drop a horse, she said. We'll be home before sunrise. In 60 days, we're in San Diego. Insurance plus the condo, 1.3 easy. Money as lullaby. Cold fingers lifted my eyelid. I did not flinch. A knuckle pressed my neck. I let my pulse be small. Sheets became a sling under my shoulders. They carried me through my own living room, past the binder open to legal like a mouth waiting for my name. The hall smelled like cleaner and late-night dust. The elevator's old cables sighed their tired song. Outside, the desert night met my skin. The truck idled at the curb, the bed shadowed. something long and boxy strapped beneath a tarp. I knew its measurements without a ruler. Pine boards, nails too long for their purpose, a lid that would not sit true if set in a hurry. They settled me in the back seat. Jessica's voice was all edges and sugar. Drive. City light thinned to highway. Highway thinned to dirt. The truck bumped and rattled until even the stars felt closer. I kept my body limp and counted heartbeats to keep my mind from sprinting. At 200, we turned. At 300, we stopped. Here, the man said. Nobody comes out this far. The tarp peeled back. The night smelled like old rain and dry weeds. They laid me on rough wood. Splinters lifted through the sheet, like small thorns. Quick, Jessica said. We dig after. The lid hovered. The sky was a thin slice. I slid my right hand inch by inch to the nape of my neck and found what I had hoped would still be there. The old metal hairpin I used for stubborn strands. I palmed it, small as a nail, hard as a plan. Nails started, tentative taps at first, then harder, finding purchase. Each strike was a clock. I listened for the rhythm. The lid did not sit flush on the left. I could feel the gap like a whisper against my cheek. Their voices blurred with the scrape of shovels. 2 feet. 3. Make it 5, Jessica ordered. The man swore about rocks. She promised him a coastline and a kitchen with marble. Erase me. Sell what I built. Toast over the keys to my life. The wood pressed close. The air thinned to the taste of pine and damp. Fear pawed at my throat, but I pressed it back the way you press a warped board flat. Steady, firm, not asking it for permission. I curled my fingers around the pin until the metal warmed to my skin. If they bury me, I told the dark, each word a nail I set for myself. They will bury the wrong woman. I breathed slow. I listened for the weak point. I waited for their footsteps to drift toward the truck and the thermos and the easy talk of money. When the ground quieted, I slid the pin to the first loose head and began to feel for the tiniest give. The click that says a closed thing is ready to open. I won't give you every scrape and breath of how the lid gave way. Know this. Pine listens if you do. Nails give if you are patient. Dawn was a thin ribbon when I slid free, and the desert air was a first sip of life. I walked until the world had edges again. I rode in the back of a farmer's truck. I rode behind kindness and kept my name in my mouth. By nightfall, Phoenix glowed like a stove coil. I went home, not through the lobby. Through the place buildings keep their secrets. Our old condo is the kind that has pipes for memory and doors nobody lists on plans. Walter and I once found a forgotten janitor's closet tucked behind 2 rattling water heaters, 6 feet by 6 feet, concrete floor, a stubborn latch. It smelled like bleach and old rain. That night it smelled like safety. I slipped in during the doorman's bathroom break, slid the cheap latch with a bit of wire, and exhaled for the first time in a day. The room held 3 broken brooms, a cracked bucket, and a stack of burlap, sacks hard as bread crust. I made a bed from the sacks and a flattened box. It wasn't comfort, it was cover. Upstairs, my apartment breathed with a new owner. Through vents and pipes, I heard cupboards, glass, the high clink of celebration. Jessica had moved into my life the way ivy takes a wall, quiet, complete. I lay on my side and listened. Laughter. Music low enough to pass as grief. A bottle opened. My name spoken like a problem already solved. Living like a shadow is work. You learn to be small on purpose. I moved only when the building yawned. Trash runs, elevator resets, the vacuum's far-off drone. I ate what I could find. A bruised apple from the staff bin, half a sandwich forgotten on a tray, crackers from a meeting room no one would miss. Water came from the janitor's sink in a slow thread that tasted like a penny. I washed at 3 a.m. with paper towels and quiet. The first night, I slept with my hand inside my shoe so I'd wake if anyone tugged it. The second night, I slept with a length of mop handle by my bed, not as a weapon, but as a reminder. You are not done. Hiding is half stillness, half study. I mapped the building the way you map a lock, feel for each pin. Camera blind spots. The side stair with the sticky third step. The service door that doesn't quite catch unless you pull twice. I learned the staff cadence by sound. The night porter hums, the morning cleaner coughs, the delivery boy whistles off-key. When the Azai building slept, I climbed the service stairs and pressed my ear to the duct that runs behind my bathroom wall. The grate screws are soft metal. They remember a tool. I loosened them just enough to slip an arm through later. I would need more than ears. I would need proof. Trash tells the truth. On Tuesday nights, the recycling room bloomed with old electronics. Radios with one good ear, phones with cracked faces, earbuds washed and forgotten. I took what others had decided was done. A tangle of wire, a travel charger, a doorbell chime with a working coil, 2 earbuds that still hissed when pressed to my palm. I do not build pretty. I build enough. If you strip the enamel off doorbell, wire and twist it to a phone's microphone pads, the world will walk right into that little hole and sit there. If you tape an earbud in reverse under a table, it hears as well as it speaks. I made 3 ugly babies and tested each one by whispering Psalm 23 into the closet air and playing it back. The Lord is my shepherd, came back thin and brave. Good enough. The first install felt like surgery. I slid through the vent from the service corridor into the cabinet under my bathroom sink and held still until the apartment answered. Jessica was there. Music. A man's voice, low. Martin. I moved like old smoke. Bug under the dining table lip. Bug behind the sofa baseboard. Bug taped beneath the headboard where whispers go to rest. All with cheap tape and prayer. Back in the closet, I let the old phone record to its own belly. Hours of air, then words, then sentences with prices in them, then names. I did not celebrate. I labeled the files by the simplest truths. Insurance call, 9:12 p.m. Realtor, 3:05. Plan, 60 days. I hid the phone in a bleach box and slept beside it like a guard dog. Sometimes I pressed my ear to the concrete and felt footsteps above, the rhythm of someone packing a life that wasn't theirs. Sometimes I pressed my palm to my own chest to check I was still here. Both answers came back yes. I was a ghost in my own building, but ghosts can watch, ghosts can gather. And ghosts, when the hour is right, can walk through a door everyone swore was closed. Nights became a ritual. Press play, hold breath, write it down. The first recordings were mostly room tone, air conditioner hum, glass on wood, a laugh that wasn't happy. Then the words arrived, clear enough to put in a ledger. Power of attorney goes first, the man's voice said. Martin. Then the incapacity letter, Dr. H signs. After that, we file the declaration. 30 days and we're clear. Jessica answered like a student reciting. Insurance in 30, condo in 60, buyer already lined up, paper rustled, a cork popped. I heard my name spoken like a task. I kept my notes plain. POA plus incapacity, declare, claim, sell. I wrote times and dates. I wrote the names. They dropped. Where I wasn't sure, I left blanks. Later is a working word. On the third night, the microphones picked up something heavier. The Glendale old man was easier, Martin said. Real Alzheimer's. No pushback from the son. Jessica laughed. The widow on the canal was messy. Daughter showed up late and cried everywhere. Still closed in 6 months. Widow, canal, Glendale. The words sat in my notebook like stones. I underlined them twice. Another night, the plan turned public. I spoke to my guy at the courthouse, Martin said, voice low and pleased. He'll text when the judge signs the presumed death. Consider it done. And the investigator? Jessica asked. He's not going to sniff around? Already paid for limited resources, he said. They'll do the flyer and a press quote. 2 weeks and it gets cold. They clinked glasses over my absence. Anger rose fast, hot as a kettle. It wanted to spill. I kept the lid on. Anger is a poor archivist. I needed a file clerk's hands. I tested the bugs again, added felt cut from an old mop head to stop table. Vibration, tucked a cotton pad over a mic to tame the hiss. The next file was cleaner. I labeled it Plan Clear Row 1 and hid the phone in a bleach box with a note to myself. Back up when safe. The more they drank, the more they bragged. Simple math. Once we move the condo, we're done with Phoenix, Jessica said. San Diego. Ocean. No more desert. Martin snorted. One more here if the Peoria lead opens. Niece is greedy. She'll play ball. Peoria. Niece. I wrote it, small and hard. In the morning, I cracked the vent and slipped into my old office. I didn't steal. I photographed. With shaking hands and a steady eye, I took pictures of forged drafts, a cognitive note I'd never heard of, a list titled, Things to Sell with My Life itemized like a yard sale. I put everything back exactly as found. Angles, edges, the way a paper curls when it's been handled twice. That afternoon, the recording caught a different kind of confession. Not a plan, a tone. You know what I love? Jessica's voice floated lazy with wine. How easy it is to make people believe old folks are confused. You just say, she forgets, and doors open. People want easy, Martin said. We provide easy. I paused the file and stared at the concrete wall until it stopped moving. I thought I was angry for myself. I learned I was angry for others. For the Glendale man who never found the path home. For the widow who cried on a canal. For the woman I hadn't met yet who would be called confused until she didn't argue anymore. The ledger changed. I started a new page. Pattern, isolate. Switch meds. Spread confusion. Collect documents. Pre-dawn drive. Declaration. Claim. Sell. Leave. I drew lines between beats and wrote the places to cut them. Doctor, investigator, courthouse, realtor. Not with rage, with daylight. On a quiet Thursday, the delivery boy left 2 water jugs outside the service hall. He muttered to himself the way young men do when they think no one listens. Weird. 5B's water use hasn't dropped. I cracked the closet door. Ryan? I said. He jumped, then leaned close as if I were a secret. Later, he brought me a prepaid phone and a small bag with 2 apples and generic blood pressure pills. My grandma had vultures for kids, he said. Just say what you need. What I needed, I realized, was bigger than a clean recording or a brave night. I needed a case no one could talk away. a file thick enough to carry into daylight and set on a desk without shaking. My anger shifted its weight. It stood up straight. It put on shoes. Not just me, I told the dark. All of them. I backed up the audio to the new phone, labeled every file with time and a plain description, and started a folder called Others. I wrote down police units I might trust, and one name I'd heard at the senior center months back, a detective who worked elder fraud and didn't look away. Mission is a sturdier word than anger. Anger burns fast. Mission walks. That night, I pressed play again and listened not for insults, not for cruelty, but for proof, for clean lines, for the place the story would break when the right hands tugged. I was done being only a survivor. I was getting ready to be a witness. I did not go to the police with a story. I went with a file. Ryan drove me to a payphone 2 blocks from the building. I called the number a woman at the senior center had once said under her breath like a blessing. Detective Miller. She doesn't. Look away. This is Eleanor Hayes, I told the voice that answered. The missing woman from the news. I'm not missing. I'm hiding. And I have proof. Silence, then a steady tone. Can you meet somewhere safe, Mrs. Hayes? A friend of hers opened the door of a small house on the edge of town. The living room smelled like lemon oil and something baking. I set my folder on the coffee table and told everything, from the blue notebook to the pine boards. I played the recordings. I showed photographs of forged drafts and cognitive notes I had never written. Detective Miller listened without interrupting, a pen still in her hand. When the last clip ended, the one where Jessica and Martin laughed about the judge who would sign the presumed death, she set the pen down and looked at me like a carpenter measuring a beam. In 23 years, she said, I have never seen someone do what you have done. We will do this right. We will do it so it holds. We made a plan with few words and many steps. She would pull a small team, people she trusted enough to bet her badge on. I would stay hidden. We would not. Move on rumor, only on record. We would wait for one clean moment when the rope went slack. Money makes people careless, she said. When the insurance hits, they'll celebrate. Drunk people confess to rooms. Rooms that listen, I said, and she almost smiled. The next week was preparation by inches. Her team rented an empty unit in the building across from mine and aimed 2 cameras at my windows, angles I had already mapped. They came and went as delivery men, as a couple apartment hunting, as a handyman with a toolbox and a tired back. No one looked twice. At midnight, 2 plainclothes officers took the service stairs, followed my map of blind spots, and checked my installed bugs. One added a small digital recorder the size of a postage stamp under the dining table where wine tends to tell the truth. I stayed in the closet and waited for a text on the prepaid phone. Bank hit, kshak, go. Waiting has its own weather. The closet felt smaller. The building sounded louder. I prayed for stillness and for a little anger, just enough to keep my spine straight. On a Wednesday at 10:14 a.m., the text arrived. Deposit confirmed. At 5:42 p.m., a second message. Champagne at 8. 2 glasses out. I took the first real shower I'd had in months in a small hotel near the freeway where Miller paid cash and stood watch outside the door. Warm water made my skin sting and then soften. A policewoman trimmed my hair and pressed a clean blouse into my hands. You look like yourself, she said. I feel like a person, I answered. At 7:40 p.m., we rode in an unmarked car around the block while the team took their places. An officer in a courier uniform waited by the elevator. 2 more were already on my floor, reading a building directory like tourists. Across the street, red dots glowed on camera stands. "Last chance to change your mind," Miller said. "I'm not a ghost tonight," I told her. "I'm a witness." We slipped in through the service door at 7:55, just as the doorman laughed with someone at the front desk. The elevator coughed up to my floor. The hallway smelled like jasmine from someone's diffuser and like my old life in the walls. Outside my door, I paused. I could hear music, low and expensive. A cork had already agreed to let go. The blue notebook would be on the table. The binder would be open to a blank line where my name should go. I imagined Jessica's hands, how they curved around a flute of champagne without shaking. "Remember," Miller whispered. "We record. We let them talk. We step in when it's time." I nodded. I felt my key, warm from my palm, the teeth familiar. I had carried it all those months like a promise. In the peephole's fisheye, my door stared back at me like an eye that still knew me. I turned the key 1 notch and stopped to feel the tumblers fall. Even this lock remembered how we used to. Move together, firm, sure, not rushed. The officers stepped back into the shadows of the alcove. Across the street, a camera light winked once. The hallway held its breath. I looked at Miller. She gave a small nod. I turned the key the rest of the way, pushed the door open, and walked into my own home. Music floated through the living room like a lie that had learned to dance. Jessica stood by the coffee table with a bottle in her hand, the wire cage already twisted free. Martin held out 2 flutes. The blue notebook lay open beside a folder stamped in red, "Claim paid." "To new beginnings," Jessica said, raising her glass. "To endings done right," Martin answered. I stepped over the threshold. "To honesty," I said. The cork hesitated in her fingers. She turned with a smile ready, the smile she used on neighbors and clerks. Then she saw me. The color left her face the way light leaves a room when someone flips a switch. "Hello, dear," I said. "You forgot to invite me." The bottle slid from her hand, bounced on the rug, and rolled against the table leg, fizzing like a swallowed secret. Martin swore under his breath and took a step back. His eyes found the hallway. The hallway had other plans. "Mom?" Jessica's voice was air and gravel. How did I walk out of pine and sand? I took another step. "The same way I walked into this world when you were born, one long breath at a time." For a moment we were all quiet. The apartment held us like a throat before a shout. Martin found his words first. "This is a trick," he said. "A stunt." "Then let's see how it plays on camera," I said, and glanced at the window. Across the street, a red dot steadied. Jessica's face rearranged itself into concern. "Mother, where have you been? We've been terrified. I told everyone you wander. You must be confused." "Confused," I repeated, nodding as if trying the word on. "Then it should comfort you to know I recorded your comfort for months, under the table, behind the sofa, in the headboard where you whisper plans." The mask slid. It didn't fall. All at once. First the eyes hardened, then the mouth forgot how to pretend. At last the voice came out true. "You should have died," she said, flat as a countertop. "It would have been easier for everyone. For you," I said gently. "Say it plain." "For me," she answered, and something like relief moved. Across her face, truth stretched for the first time in months. From the hallway, a shoe scuffed. Martin lunged toward the door. He met a badge and a calm voice. "Good evening," Detective Miller said, stepping in with two officers. "Jessica Hayes, Martin Vance. We're recording. Please keep your hands where we can see them." Jessica glanced at me as if I had reached across a table and taken back a fork. "You brought cops into our home?" "My home," I said. Miller nodded to me once and turned to the pair. "You are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, forgery, and elder exploitation. We can add more after booking." "Don't touch me!" Jessica snapped, flipping her wrists away as an officer reached for them. "You have no proof." "Play file 1, Miller said to the officer by the window. From a small speaker came Jessica's own voice, easy with wine. "Insurance in 30. Condo in 60. Buyer already lined up." Another clip followed, Martin's tone, all business. "The Glendale old man was easier." Then Jessica again, soft and cruel. "You just say she forgets and doors open." The room shrank to the size of their words. Metal kissed Martin's wrists. Another pair of cuffs waited for Jessica. She stared at them like a magic trick gone wrong, then looked at me. "Why?" I asked before I could stop myself. Not a courtroom question. A mother's. Her mouth curved into a smile I didn't know. "Because I could," she said. "Because people like you make it easy." My heart did not break. It remembered what it had always known. Love is a door you can open and close, but you cannot make someone walk through. "Read them," Miller said. The officer did. Rights fell into the room like measured nails. They led the two of them past my photographs, past. The binder opened to the place my name was supposed to go, past the blue notebook where she had written my life in neat lines. The door closed behind them with a clean latch. Silence settled. Not the empty kind. The full kind. I stood very still and let my body catch up to the moment. My legs shook. My hands did not. I thought of Walter's saying, "Every stuck thing wants to move." Sometimes you are the tool. Sometimes you are the thing. People talk about victory like it is a finish line with flags. Survival is not that. Survival is the choice you make when the room is dark and tight, and someone calls your name like it doesn't belong to you anymore. It is one breath, then another, then the next right thing. In the months that followed, there were headlines and hearings and forms that multiplied like rabbits. There were kind hands and hard days. I moved to a smaller place with a sunny balcony. I started a little circle for seniors who needed eyes and ears and company. We called it Senior Watch because we meant both words. If you are listening now, if something in your life feels smaller than it should, if someone is moving your world around you and calling it help, hold still. Count the coins. Label the file. Ask for a name that doesn't look away. You are not alone. Tell me where you're listening from, and never underestimate the strength of those who refuse to be buried.